All right, you are listening to the Business of Social podcast powered by SCN Digital. I'm your host, David Brickley. Each and every week, we dig into the ever-changing digital and marketing landscape. This week is no different. Got a big guest on the show today. This is episode 48. Wow, we're almost 50. This is a big number coming up here. Who do we have for 50 is the question. Will, 48. Who do we got? As you guys all know, just in case you're just tuning in, we always look at the famous jersey numbers of every single episode, and this is episode 48. So I got nothing on 48 off the top of my head. Will, you got anybody?
I got 4 48s for you.
4, okay.
Number 1, Jimmy Johnson, NASCAR.
Jimmy Johnson. How many, have we done any cars before? I mean, at 24, did we say Jeff Gordon is a question? I mean, I don't know.
I'm assuming we did Kobe.
Yeah, we definitely did Kobe. All right.
And I think Jimmy's going to take the edge here because he's a San Diego guy. Other than him, though, we got Torrey Hunter, MLB, Scott Young.
Torrey, I'm a big Torrey Hunter guy.
Yeah, he was nice. And
former Minnesota Twin, okay.
Daryl Moose Johnson, Cowboys fullback.
Daryl Moose Johnson, also
legendary
is he
fullback.
still on Fox, but I know he does some color commentating as well. Moose Johnson.
Might be topical for the Fox episode.
Yeah, that's actually good. Didn't Torrey Hunter do some TV work too on Fox? It could be.
I believe so. Yeah.
All right. So Furker's telling me I have to go Jimmy Johnson because this guy's a San Diego native inside and out. All right, that'll be our first NASCAR driver, I think, right, in the history of the Business of Social podcast.
Yeah, we'll check the NASCAR box.
All right, so let's check that NASCAR box. We got to spread it evenly here on the Business of Social. All right, so. We've talked to Katie Daly on the ESPN front. We've talked to Lindsay on the NBC Sports front and really wanted to chat with my friends over at Fox Sports. So Michael Bucklin is the vice president of digital content. He spent 10 years over at ESPN. I think every single year of his career at ESPN, he was promoted to a different level of social producer and kind of continuing his career. And then about 3 years ago or so, he made the move over to Fox Sports. And again, promotion after promotion after promotion. Now he's the vice president of digital content, overseeing about 60 or 70 people that are dedicated to digital. So talking about a guy that knows how to set up processes and also to lead a group of people. And you talk about Fox, man, from the World Cup to the WWE to college football to the World Cup, you name it, they cover it and they have rights and IP to it. They got a lot on their plate. So I'm really interested to hear not only how do they cover all those events, but how do they amplify the Skip and Shannons and the Colin Cowards of the world and the Jason Whitlock, all those different shows that are on the Fox networks because they made a huge investment in talent quite a few years ago, and that's something that they really hang their hat on. So they want to amplify that message. And I'll be honest with you, I watch a lot of Fox content, Skip and Shannon. I can't get enough of the Embrace debate that was started back in the ESPN days and continues on Fox. So really excited to talk to Michael Bucklin. How do they do it? How do they cover all that stuff on an annual basis? So this is going to be fun. Once again, Michael Bucklin, the vice president of digital content at Fox Sports. All right, he is the vice president of digital content at Fox Sports. Michael Bucklin joins us on the program. Michael, what's going on, man?
Hey, David, doing great. How are you?
Thanks so much for coming on the program. I always start things off with a random question. Word on the street is you're a good basketball player. So what current or former NBA player does your game most closely resemble?
Oh, man. It's probably not an NBA player you've heard of, but it's whatever NBA player sits at the end of the bench and just waves that towel.
Yeah.
Whenever his teammates dunk, he's the first to be out there and high five them. That's whatever NBA players are. That's me.
So you're a true Jared Dudley. I get it. No problem.
Yeah.
So, your background's interesting. I want to get into, first of all, you spent 10 years at ESPN before moving over to Fox about 3 years ago. But for the listeners, do you mind just giving kind of a 10,000 foot view of your current role and what you oversee day to day at Fox?
Yeah, you got it. So I oversee digital content at Fox. Digital content is really anything that you're going to see from our website, our app, social media, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, but also podcasting platforms like iTunes. And We support our linear team in a variety of ways. For instance, anytime you see social media on air, it might be a tweet during a college football game where, LeBron James is talking about how great the Ohio State Buckeyes are. We cover those platforms and we support our linear counterparts through social listening and display.
That's awesome. And then how big is that digital team? Because you and I were talking about it a few weeks ago, and I know it's grown quite a bit over the last few years.
Yeah, we've had a nice 3-year growth streak. I think we're around 60 to 70 producers. Someone told me today we've added 10 people in the last 3 weeks. So,
and all those folks are dedicated to digital or social?
Yep, exactly. Wow. In a variety of different ways. It could be producers, editors, social media, community managers, etc.
That's awesome. So I want to get down, I guess I always like asking this question, especially, VP of digital content. I know you sit down with a lot of executives and partners and explain social and how it works and why it's important. And we're going into 2020. And I asked your friend Katie Daly this same question, so I'll ask your take. What's your go-to elevator pitch when you're explaining to a group of people, especially some of the old heads out there, why this is important, why we need 10 more people, and why this is the future?
Sure. I mean, the easiest and oldest metaphor here is, you got to fish where the fish are. We'd be kidding ourselves if we thought we could tell people where and how to consume content. Mm-hmm. We cannot. People are going to go to platforms that they prefer, platforms that are on their phone, platforms where their friends are, platforms where influencers are. If we're not there, we miss out on that conversation, and that is where the conversation is happening generally, where athletes are talking to one another, where people are discussing sports. TJ Adishola's favorite, world's biggest sports bar.
Yeah.
It's where the online conversation or the conversation around the game is happening, and if we're not there, it's going to go on without us. So, I'm a big proponent that we should be there. And I don't think that, the internet's a fad. I think this is only going to grow. So
love it. So that being said, Mike, what's your core belief on how to approach it? You have these 70 people below you. You obviously have your strategy and the different ROI that makes sense at Fox, but kind of what's your core belief to build these platforms and to have success on social?
So first and foremost, I think that we need to be thinking about how we differentiate from other people, right? I mean, I think about this past week, LeBron James, the quote unquote washed king, going through the lane and, putting that poor, Sacramento Kings center in a body bag.
The Lakers and the Kings, I feel so bad for Kings fans. It never stops. Every decade there's something.
Yeah. He does this, right? What happens next? We all know what happens next, right? Every single media entity on the planet is going to share that. The NBA is going to share it. LeBron's going to share it. The Lakers are going to share it. Anyone with a cell phone is going to record their TV and share it. You're going to have a million wonderful captions and funny copy, but I think we can all admit that space is a little bit crowded, and how do you stand out in a space like that? I think that's the question that we all have to be asking ourselves, because you got to give fans a choice. They have unlimited options right now.
Right.
And so we try to think of who we are and what makes us differentiated or what makes us strong, gives us a competitive advantage. And I think that first and foremost, we think about our events. Like, we're very fortunate to have this incredible rights portfolio here at Fox, from the World Cup. This year we have the Super Bowl. We just finished, the World Series. We have an awesome college football slate, awesome NFL slate. So we think about those properties that separate us a little bit. And then we also like to think about our talent. We have 250 talent here, a lot of which are household names. Imagine being a college football fan and, every Saturday morning, you come on the air with Urban Meyer and Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart and, Brady Quinn and America's host, Rob Stone. I mean, you look at baseball, I could go through every sport and tell you these names.
Don't forget about Gus Johnson. Gus Johnson's one of my all-time favorites.
God's gift to the internet, Gus Johnson. And not to forget, Joel Klatt, my take for best announcer out there, and Jenny Taft on the field. It's just amazing crews, right? And so I think people generally like people more than brands. And I think people like our people a lot, and we want to serve content through the eyes of our people.
Well, walk me through that in more of my favorite word, granular, but in a granular way. LeBron posterizes them down the key. Now, I get what you're saying. Everybody's posting that highlight. Do you post a highlight to just check that box and then kind of build shoulder programming around it in a Fox way? Or do you almost stay away from the highlight, assuming that your followers are following ESPN, Lakers, NBA, and you don't really need to post that? How do you kind of double down?
Sure. So I guess in some cases, like the World Cup, for instance, we're the exclusive rights holder. And so that is a huge value, and it's a differentiated value. So we're the only ones that have
Yep.
those rights. And so we need to be providing those rights. If it's something like college football, and it's probably a little bit, we share it with others, but it's not, totally ubiquitous. It's not everywhere yet. We're going to focus on where we're a little different. You mentioned Gus Johnson. Gus Johnson has some of the greatest calls of highlights of all time. Think about Hollywood Brown, and we want to retreat those highlights in a way that makes it Gus.
We got to get a GoPro on Gus at all times. Just have a double stacked video of all his top calls for the weekend. I love it.
You know what? I totally agree with you. I do like a little bit the mystique of Gus.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. But really, after that, we want to be a place that you turn to hear the opinions and perspective of our talent. And we're pretty lucky that we assume a lot of our fans do watch the game or seen the highlights. We want to be the place they turn to for perspective of those games and those highlights.
A lot has been said, talking to friends at the NFL and then talking to a lot of different league partners. They say they get much more distribution from all of their athletes and they do their owned and operated platform. So that made me think of what you just said when you talk about, Gus and Reggie and all these guys. How have you leveraged your talent, Skip, Shannon? Is that a huge thing for you guys to make sure that you're using the whole ecosystem rather than just the Fox operated platforms?
Yeah, people talk about influencer networks, and we have this built-in influencer network of 250 plus talent that have enormous followings. You look at the following of Urban Meyer or Reggie Bush, right? Early adopter from social media. And you go into a week, this past week, I think, we had a Gus Johnson call the game. I think it was one of the Michigan players blocked a punt, and Gus calls him the Viper. And so not only is that amazing, but then the player himself, who feels honored by this, Gus Johnson giving him, this amazing call, he's going to share that to his own audience. And then all of a sudden we're talking to more Michigan fans than we were yesterday. Right. In the case of Reggie Bush, like every week he's going to identify his favorite run, normally by an elite running back who's obviously going to feel honored that he's been tabbed by Reggie Bush, the best run of the week. And Reggie's going to share that to his audience, and his audience is massive. And then that player is going to be honored by it and share it with his followers as well. So it ends up being like, influencer networks on influencer networks for us. And, I don't have time to go through all of our roster, but we have a lot of talent that have a lot of big followings.
Yeah, you almost forget. Like you always think of Skip and Colin and Shannon and all that, but then you work your way down to the game day crew on the NFL and college, and you start to forget that all these people are on the roster. How have you found success to get content in their hands? Are you using any type of platform? I know some guys and gals are more privy than others to share content, but how have you found success, being able to use those platforms to Fox's advantage?
Sure. So first of all, these talent have this direct relationship with their fans. And so a lot of these talent, it's just so natural to them. They just absolutely love it. And the ones that don't know about it yet or haven't really invested in it yet, it's really quick. Like once they onboard and they learn just like how much their fans love them and what kind of feedback they get on these platforms, I think it's a pretty brave activity to go on air every single day for 3+ hours and to have the absolute best of what you do be shared and edited and optimized in a great way that, this brand is sharing your work.
It's a world. Living portfolio for
great.
you. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And when they like it, and their ability to amplify it, retweet it, share it, repost it, et cetera, and then even engage with fans who are asking them questions about their perspective or, to tell them a story, like that to me is when we're at our best.
That's awesome. What's a common mistake you see other networks or other teams or brands doing in our space?
I think the first thing is probably, it's always kind of been a little bit of a pet peeve of mine, and that we cover these people that go out on the field and they compete at the absolute highest level and they take a risk, right? It's the man in the arena, as LeBron writes on his shoes and his socks. And unfortunately, these platforms historically have provided, 140 characters that we can use to weigh in on these elite athletes who are putting it all out there. And I think when people are a little short in their criticism, a little negative, or a little quick to judge, or a little bit, results based in their analysis rather than thoughtful. I tend to think that's a mistake. It's a reason that I think we try to be a little bit more celebratory and appreciate, what these athletes are going out there to do every day. And if we are going to be a little critical, is to be very thoughtful and researched, and avoid name calling and avoid the pettiness. I think that not only provides like a better experience for the fan, but it just, to me, the more thoughtful approach makes our talent a bit more credible. And that's something we work really hard at here, that I think a lot of this industry is going to learn a little bit about, especially as these platforms start preferring longer form content. It's harder to be thoughtful for 3+ minutes, that a Facebook is going to prefer, or YouTube is going to prefer. So, to me, it's always been a little bit of my pet peeve. I like to see people be a little more thoughtful, a little more reasonable in their analysis.
So, you and I spoke about this a little bit, I think. But so first of all, when I go home, sometimes I just want to kind of veg out, and it's been a long day. I put Skip and Shannon on in the background more times than not. I just get their take on the last Laker game or what have you. And, I'm somebody, and I mentioned this to Danny Corrales, who's a producer on The Jump over at ESPN. I asked him this question. I'll ask you the same. I don't think I've seen Skip and Shannon on linear. I don't think I've ever tuned in on television and watched them. But I'm telling you, I've watched hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours on your guys' YouTube channel. So from where you sit, I'm guessing that's success. But as a network, how do you kind of break that down, or what are kind of the execs saying when it comes to that type of viewership?
Sure. So the way we like to look at this is, a lot of these people, we're not going to speak to them at all unless we reach out to them on the platform that they're on. So there are a lot of people who wake up every single day and, maybe they go to YouTube and that is their habit. And that's where we meet these people. And if we don't meet them there, they might not ever know that we existed. But I do think that whether it's Undisputed or whether it's a live event, there's absolutely no better experience than that live and full experience. And so we feel like if we can give them a little taste and they can come to learn that taste, or even develop habits around that taste, the better taste is always going to be the live real thing. And to be talking about that show or that event while it's happening, on the internet with your friends and with your followers, I just think that, if you don't do it, you'll never speak to them. If you do it, maybe you pull a few of them over, and you know what? We also have pretty decent monetization efforts going on the digital and social side. So, this isn't just marketing. There's a real business going on here.
Yeah, and that was the main question I have for you too, because the reason why I asked that question is because for so long, especially the last 20 years, the 90-95% of revenue comes from linear television commercials. And I know a few years ago it was tough. We don't want to share that stuff for free. We got to make sure they come to us. But now that's definitely changed. Are there limitations? Like when it comes to you guys, are you sprinkling some stuff out there, but not all of it to try to get people back to linear? Or is it, let's put a Chinese wall almost between both of these and just get the content out all day long?
Yeah, so part of it is actual restrictions. There's only so much that we can share due to our affiliate rights, and we're very diligent to stay within that, in those limitations. A lot of leagues might say you can only share X amount of highlight per game. Shows, we have some sort of limit, X amount of minutes per total linear minutes. So, we're definitely not trying to give away the whole thing. And it's why when we think about the way we measure success around here, we can't just be singularly minded and think about views or time spent viewing alone, because, well, I can tell you how to get more views, put all of our best events for free on the internet.
Of course.
That's just not good business. So, we got to be a little bit more strategic and hand out tastes of it and do our best to monetize those tastes.
Well, that being said, you shared an interesting stat with me in person that I hope you can share on the pod. Is, Shannon and Skip, it's incredible how they can go on these 11-minute monologues about should have LeBron shot or should he have passed to Danny Green in the corner for the tie or whatever. It really is like a skill that's incredible sometimes when I'm watching these guys. And they say, don't interrupt me, let me get through my 11 minutes. No, but you actually shared a stat that, because with the attention span, and Snapchat's telling me that, young people's attention span's at 8 seconds, but you guys are seeing some pretty impressive numbers on that long form content. What are you guys seeing on that front?
So, I think that you're seeing the hollowing out of the middle a little bit, right? Look at Twitch.
That's
Kids
true.
are spending 2+ hours
Watching
on these
Ninja. Yep.
platforms,
Yep.
watching Ninja and all these guys. And historically we're told that the internet is short. I remember BuzzFeed was very innovative with their 40-second Facebook team. And,
Yep.
I think of the early days of YouTube were, cat videos and fail videos and Charlie bit my finger. And we're just not seeing that anymore. And we're seeing people actually have like real attention span so long as the content is quality. I've looked at the time spent viewing numbers on Skip and Shannon, and they'll blow your mind. People are spending a considerable amount of time listening to these guys, and it's really a testament to these guys
To
who
keep
wake up every
attention
day.
for,
And
sometimes on a tough sports day or on a pretty basic subject, they can keep it going. Yeah.
Yeah, and you meet these guys and you get it. If the show wasn't capped at 2.5 hours, they would go for 5, right?
Exactly.
They're just born, with opinion, and they're passionate about it, and they spend time crafting it. And I love it. I love it because I used to think that the shorter form content was a little bit of a black eye in terms of quality, and I love that the internet is only getting longer. But like I said, it's really the middle that's hollowing out, because I look at TikTok and it's never been shorter.
Right.
So you could either go shorter, you could go longer, like Twitch. But I think most of the platforms are generally getting a little longer.
And I feel like that's just been content consumption from its infancy, right? Like some people like the 17-minute Seinfeld sitcom, while others watch the 3-hour feature-length film in theaters type deal. So I think it's always been just like, what am I in the mood for? Do I want to sit down and watch 11 minutes of this, or do I just want to kind of scroll on Instagram and get quick content?
Sure.
So yeah, that being said, what's the main ROI for you? What are the numbers you're looking at? You mentioned obviously digital revenue, but in terms of time spent or views or growth, what are those main metrics you're looking at?
Yeah, it's a little alliteration. It's the 3 R's. It's ratings, relevance, and revenue. And from a ratings perspective, we're definitely looking at views. We're looking at time spent viewing. We want both of these go up. But we're also looking at engagement. We're looking at follower count. These matter. And we'd be silly if we thought that only one of them mattered. It's a few that do matter. On the relevance front, this is significantly more subjective, but it's very it's a lot cooler when a blue check mark tells the world that they like your content or engage with your content than when you just share your content or engage with your own stuff.
Yep.
As a Georgia football fan, this past weekend Herschel Walker gave us a follow and interacted with us, and it's that's relevant. To me, that's the best running back of all time. Engaging with the college football content, I think that's great. And then of course the revenue front, we would do this for free probably, but we certainly like to make money along the way and better our position in the industry and here at Fox.
Do you think, and maybe it's happened, you can share it, but if a show isn't really getting great ratings on linear, but it's just killing it on digital and social, can that be enough in the year 2019 to keep that show going? Even though if it was just a linear program in 1998, they would have killed it. But like on digital, it's going so great that it makes sense. Or is it still?
You know what? I'm looking forward to that day.
Okay, so we're not quite there yet. That's a good answer.
Yeah. I don't think we're quite there yet. But I certainly think it's better when the two work in unison. When the show is growing on TV and the show is also growing online, and look no further than our FS1 shows, which all seem to be doing exactly that, steady growth on both linear and digital.
How do you guys? So in a tough subject, I remember Jason Whitlock has always been hard on LeBron as this cornerstone of voicing his concerns, and obviously with the whole NBA thing and China, I was personally as a fan, I'm like, I can't wait to hear what Whitlock has to say about this, because I know he's going to have a strong opinion.
Sure.
He's there in the background if you're watching on YouTube. But how do you draw the line? Because I'm sure from a digital standpoint, there's kind of that PR that you have to cross, and how do you, when it comes to some of those more difficult subjects, how do you guys take that, or what's that line for y'all?
Yeah, so I think every one of those is its own individual conversation, and not every talent is an expert on every single matter.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that we need to be like self-aware and a little bit self-reflective.
And blocking and tackling for that talent too, right? Yeah.
Totally, 100%. some talent, we hired because they were incredible athletes who know how to game plan and know what athletes are thinking. And you add these geopolitical issues, and not everyone is, up to speed with what's happening. And it's hard to know everything. I don't really think anyone is great at everything, right? And so for each talent, that's an individual conversation. I think Jason's, a great example because this is something that he's been doing his whole career and something that he's built his own, talent brand on. So he's a little more adept at it than most.
So 60 to 70 people, what's your take on core values and culture? You're in a very high paced environment. Fox is crazy because we work with you guys on the marketing side, but every single month I feel like there's a huge tentpole event. It never stops, right? And how do you lead your team? How do you increase motivation? Like, what are kind of your thoughts as a leader of that big group?
Oh man, I love this. This is where I like to spend the most of my time. I never thought that would be the case. I definitely got into this industry because I liked making things. And now that I manage a team, I found myself caring so much more about
I'm the same way, man.
Empowering people and developing people. Yep. And I love to talk to you about that sometime because, as you know, it's hard. And there's a different way you manage every single person, and millennials are a whole nother conversation, right? So the way that I like to do it is I try, and I probably fail more than not, but I try to set out what it is that we're trying to do here. We're trying to cover live events, specifically the events on Fox, but also just the biggest events in sports. We are trying, to cover sports through the lens of our amazing roster of talent, which I mentioned earlier. We're trying to listen through social listening software like a tag board or a spread fest to see what people are talking about so we can serve them what they want. We're trying to do things in a repeatable way because when you do the same thing week after week, even if you adjust it week after week, you tend to get better at it. Yeah. And the fans come to understand what it is you're trying to deliver to them. And so when we lay out these tent poles for our team, I found the next best thing to do is hire the best damn people you possibly can, give them these tent poles and let them play within that tent as creatively as they possibly can. And I found that most people, they don't want to be told what to do. They want to be told why to do something. And if you can tell them why and you can put them in a meaningful direction and you can give them the right tent poles to play within, I found that they're going to surprise and delight you more often than not. So that's my strategy and helping them develop along the way with a lot of one-on-one conversations and really getting into, these just deep strategy conversations with individuals so they really feel like they're part of it.
Yeah, I heard two things from that answer. One, it sounds like you've probably learned, I'm going to set this precedent in the interview process. Like, here's what we do here. Here's what we expect of you. Like, just to make sure you know what you're signing up for. I think a lot of people say like, well, I love sports. Like, yeah, I know you love sports, but here's what here's what this means. And then two, it sounds like you've had success pointing people in certain verticals. That way they don't have to go straight from World Cup straight into NFL and maybe burn themselves out a little bit. Have you had success kind of compartmentalizing the different teams?
Yeah, it's not easy. It's a grind, and I think this is true. I think we have more live event partners than any other sports media company, which basically means, I think about June 2017, I got this job and in the middle of a baseball season, an MLS season, I got college football, NFL right around the corner as well as the World Series. As soon as that ends, we're right into college basketball. We're right into spring, and we have the World Cup in Moscow coming right around the corner. So I think while a lot of people are enjoying their off season, we're traveling, 16 hours away to cover the world's biggest tournament. We're going to come back from that, and we're going to jump right back into another baseball season, soccer season, and fall. It just never ends, and so what we try to do is, flexibility with schedules, right? Okay. Get your breaks. Get your breaks. If you can get your breaks, get them in, vacation hard, and come back ready to work. But letting people control their schedule a little bit, letting people work with their manager when they need a breather, I found is helpful. And then having verticals, like you said, you're going to attack baseball, and when you're done, we're going to give you a little break, and then you're going to attack football. So I found that to be helpful. But also the crossover learns between these sports and these properties is huge.
Yeah.
So as soon as they're ready to get back after it, we're ready for them to bring all their learns from baseball season right back into football season.
Another property you guys gained, well, first of all, you got XFL coming up in 2020, which will be interesting. But another thing that kind of came across your portfolio this year was WWE, which, I mean, the wrestling audience is just some of the most passionate humans on the face of the earth, as we well know. But talk me through like when you found out you guys were going to get that property and how you set that up for success too.
Sure. Well, as someone who has been using social listening data for so long, I mean, I'm very used to looking at a Monday night and being like, wow, Raw's the number one trend.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of big, time football going on Mondays, and, and just seeing these storylines just break through. And, it was always like, why aren't we covering this? Like, it just always felt like we should be, right? And 5 years ago, I think that was like a little bit of a controversial question, but today it's just a no-brainer. And so when you look at the WWE universe, and the WWE will tell you this, they have more social followers than anyone else in sports.
Yep.
And there are some really good people out there like the NBA at social media. So when we were told it was coming, I think that it was one of those things that was hard to like keep under wraps. We had to tell people on the team like, hey, put this one in the lockbox and throw away the key until it's announced.
Because it's social on steroids. I mean, you do good strategy there. I mean, it's just like, it's like putting a lighter on gasoline.
You know what the best part is? Like, obviously, it's a little bit of an underserved audience, and that general sports media, or big general sports media, hasn't covered them historically. So it was ripe, like you said, right? It was ready to blow up. But the best part from what I've seen is that when you talk about these athletes or you cover these athletes, they all amplify your own message of them.
Talk about influencers,
The biggest influencer network on the planet is the WWE superstar. So that part's been very rewarding. And I think we just set our all-time first month for a property record. WWE on social had 40 million views and 600,000 followers. Jeez. And I think the last week we just gained like another 22,000 on Instagram. I mean, it's just exploding.
Yeah, that's awesome. It helps when The Rock kicks things off too with the first inaugural show too. That never hurts. Nice Instagram post before. So, talk me through UGC. It's been a topic that we've talked a lot about on the podcast. How huge it is, but B, like how to use it properly or improperly. What's your take on UGC, and how have you guys used it on your different platforms?
Yeah, so we try to be strategic about it. Like we're obviously aware of how powerful it is, right? We're obviously aware that some of the best content on the internet was just captured on a cell phone in somebody's backyard. I think we try to think about like how it relates to our brand. Yeah. Some of my favorite videos might be there's a video going out now. I don't know what the meme is called, but it's the kids who are passing the ball around on the basketball court, and then they just start skipping out of the gym. And it's
the James Harden Euro step. Yeah.
So the way I see it is like, that's incredible content. Is the person who loves that video, which might be a very, very broad audience, going to be the same fan that's also going to come and interact with Skip and Shannon and Chris Broussard when it comes to all things basketball, or Nick Wright or Colin, or when we talk about basketball, is the fan who likes that also going to like us? Because it's an algorithmic world. Like, you want to have a high ratio of people who follow your brand and interact with your content. And I'm not sure how aligned those are. But what I know our fans are aligned on is when we use UGC to celebrate fandom. And there's no better example than this than at the World Cup, when we were able to use, geo-targeted listening to find watch parties all across the globe, and to take the content from these watch parties and integrate it into our coverage, not just in digital and social, but also on linear. Our number one video of the World Cup was a video of some sort of public place in London where when England scored, all of the fans.
When they threw the beers up in the air, was that you guys? Oh, that's it. Yeah. Can't forget that.
Number one video. So
it's probably the number one memed video now too, which is funny, right? Yeah.
I also like the one in the sports bar where everyone's watching the screen and then they erupt.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, I think like using UGC to celebrate fandom is more for us probably than your average, fail video or funny video in the backyard.
You talk about monetization. Obviously, it's so important. Is there a good example you can think of so far at your time at Fox of just a really well executed, well received piece of branded content where you're able to, mesh your property or your IP with a sponsor and kind of it just went over really well?
Yeah, a couple immediately come to mind. I'll probably have to limit myself here, but I really like Joel Klatt's Breaking the Huddle, sponsored by Dr. Pepper, because Joel Klatt actually loves Dr. Pepper, and he actually starts off every episode of Breaking the Huddle by drinking a Dr. Pepper and talking about how tasty it is, and it's funny. Completely and utterly authentic.
Yeah.
And Dr. Pepper wants to be closer to the football conversation, and I think Joel and our team have really gone out of their way to make that a real true partnership. It doesn't feel forced at all. It feels so natural. It's only grown over the last 3 or 4 years. I think it will only grow more. I also love this thing we do on college football. We have 2 things we do that I'm really proud of. One of them is called American Eagle Game Week, and we actually hire students at universities where we're going to be playing that Saturday, and we have them document their entire week behind the scenes. Maybe it's a swimming team, the basketball team, and it ultimately culminates with the football team from site at the stadium or at the arena. And what we do is we send them a $50 American Eagle gift card, and they dress an American Eagle, and they provide you this all access selfie tour, which, as students, they know how to hold that phone. So
that's awesome.
We do that. And then similarly, we hire additional students we credential them, we put them on the field, and we pay them a little bit of money, and they get real on the job experience, and they shoot these unique camera angles, from the pylons, like hero shots, looking up at the athletes who are often coming at those pylons. And we upload it for real-time stories and something we call Fox Field Pass that's had a variety of sponsors.
That's awesome. What's the one thing you wish you could do more of at Fox?
Something that I wish we could do more of. I'm very eager to bring in more personalities that our fans love. One of the cool differences to me between TV and digital is that in the television space, great personality is great personality, and it translates into great TV. Yeah. But in the digital space, their actual following, like we discussed earlier, actually turns them into a influencer network for you that exposes your content to more people, and I think that's something that will make us better as a team, especially in areas of sports that we don't have linear broadcast rights to, right? Like EPL, the Olympics, etc. Like, we're going to need to find authentic and social endemic voices to help us cover these events.
All right. So outside the Fox family, Michael Bucklin's the president of Fox Sports. You got unlimited budget. Who's the guy or gal that you want on your roster to just make your life easier?
Oh, geez. I mean, if I say one person, then I just ignored everyone else that I'm trying to hire. So
is it Barkley? He doesn't have social, though. That's going to help you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, is LeBron James available?
Yeah, there you go.
How about
maybe when LeBron retires, you can get him up on. Let's skip.
Yeah, I'll just go get Messi and Ronaldo, and I'll get Neymar while I'm at it, and we'll just out the team.
Deal.
So.
Love it. How do you see social change in the next 3 to 5 years? Because I still think, I mean, you and I could probably shed a tear over drinks one night, but it's amazing to me how this thing is not still being taken seriously by Fortune 500 brands, by networks, by teams. There's some people that still say, yeah, we probably should, figure out this social thing once and for all. Yeah. And you and I know how huge it is and how everybody has a phone in their pocket. I think the next 5 years are going to be super revolutionary in the media space. How do you see it over the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, first of all, to all those people that feel like, it's still being overlooked a little bit, put that chip on your shoulder and let it motivate you a little bit, because I think we're going to be on the right side of history with this. So,
yes. Good point.
I love to be motivated by it first and foremost. And I tell you what, I like it increases the stakes a little bit, that, sometimes, holding the cell phone doesn't look as legit maybe as holding the shoulder camera, but, it uploads that content a lot faster. I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I love it. I love being the underdog. As a short basketball player, I'm pretty used to it. So,
and that's what you saw that too, like with your career so far, like over the last 13. I even saw at ESPN. I think the same thing with Katie, right? Like, you guys had like 9 different jobs. every year you got promoted to it just because that, and you could see the transition as social became more important. They were opening up these new roles where you made it, now you're a VP of all digital content, which is awesome. But that whole, trajectory for you started with social doesn't mean anything. And now, holy crap, it's 2020. It means a lot. We better get a VP for it.
And it's, look, we all know it's impactful. We reach so many people, and I think what we need to be better at, David, is translating it.
Yeah.
To people who grew up in a world in which like ratings are the end all be all.
Yes.
Like our numbers might sound silly. They might not believe them. Or they might, say that, well, a view on TV isn't the same as a view on digital. So, I think that we're waiting for metrics to sort of objectively tell our story a little bit better. But in the meantime, that's on us. So we got to translate a little bit. I found that, even people who struggle to grasp the numbers or the ROI, just look at go look at your kids, look what they're looking at. Go look at what your talent are looking at during breaks, and you can see the smile it puts on their faces or how much they enjoy it. But yeah, I think it's undeniable. I think we're going to be on the right side of history on a lot of this. But as for how it's going to change, I look back, speaking at ESPN in those days working with Katie, I look back and I remember talking to one of my bosses one time, and I said, it's a little frustrating that I look around this industry and I see all these nimble, risk-tolerant companies that seem to be taking on this provocative content approach or provocative language or pushing the envelope into gray areas and doing things that I didn't feel like we could as a major media organization.
Barstool maybe comes to mind, yeah.
Barstool is probably the best in the world at that, right? Yeah. So, you look, there's a lot, though, that barrier of entry in this space, there's a lot of entrants and a lot of people are really damn good at it. And, it would feel frustrating that we can't turn at the same speed.
Yeah.
And I remember telling my boss this, I feel like we're in this big, immobile aircraft carrier and we got all these speedboats that are just like zipping around and cutting us off. And my boss was like, yeah, you know what? That's a great analogy. The good thing about being on an aircraft carrier is when you plot that course correctly and you face your future and you face your goals, you face it with the almighty power of an aircraft carrier.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Yeah.
And I look at the industry and I'm like, man, how's it changing? Well, I'd say, some of the biggest media organizations just told us exactly where they're going to go. They lined up their linemen. They're going to run the ball right at, the streaming wars. And in our case, I think we made a pretty amazing bet called Fox Bet. And I think that gambling is going to be a pretty big deal in the future here.
100%.
So whether your D2C strategy and developing a better relationship with your customers through streaming, or for us, it's through an app that maybe allows you to be a little more invested in that live event. I think that direct relationship with the customer is definitely the next 3 to 5 years.
That's awesome. Don't forget about 5G too when that comes out. Whew, I can't wait. Cannot wait. All right, so I know we got kind of at the end of time here, so I got some rapid fire questions for you.
Sure.
What is you mentioned, I think, Spreadfast and some different platforms, but what is the one social or marketing tool that you can't live without?
Oh man, that's a great question. Right now, I think one of the coolest things that we're doing is interactivity. And so I'm a big fan of what we're currently doing with Tagboard. I just think they're a fantastic partner, and they allow us to go back and forth with fans. And I just love it. I can't tell you how much I love it when it's the middle of a major event, and LeBron weighs in and he's got something to say about his Buckeyes, and we're able to take that to screen. It just like heightens the moment. It's like, oh, no, I'm not just watching this. Like LeBron James is watching this, and it took time to like tweet and support these athletes. I think about like the World Cup Now show that we produced in Moscow. We also produced in Paris, and how it just changed the way that we produce these shows is they're almost like co-produced with the fan at home.
Yep.
And, you think about like how you differentiate from a linear product. I think that interactivity is probably the biggest way. And I'd like to think that there's more interactivity down the road, and we need to be staying close to platforms like Tagboard.
I love it. From a business perspective, what social platforms seem to be working the best for you right now?
Each has its own strength, right? And I don't mean to chicken out on the question, but like, Twitter is the best live platform there is, to TJ's live sports bar analogy. It's the best live platform there is. So if you're covering a live game, which I've told you we really care about here at Fox Sports is live programming, then you better be on Twitter being part of that live conversation. But then you look at branded content platforms, like there's nothing better than Instagram and Facebook. The way that they allow branded content gives us a lot of flexibility and great ROI. And then you look at YouTube, and it's the world's biggest video platform tied to the world's biggest search platform.
People forget about YouTube. I don't know why, but they do. Number 3 most visited website in the world. Stop forgetting about YouTube. Okay, sorry.
The thing is massive, right? Yeah. And I think the same way. But I will say, like, if you're not a company that has tremendous talent resources, perhaps it's hard to get long form content that thrives on a platform like that, especially at high volume. So, I know why it gets forgotten, but we certainly haven't forgotten it. We love it. We see between Facebook and YouTube the most amount of viewership, but between Twitter is obviously where we're having that live conversation during our events.
What are your thoughts, initial thoughts on TikTok? How are you guys going to attack that platform if you haven't already?
Oh man, I love TikTok. I'm a personal fan. I love it. I'm mesmerized by it. And we had a relationship with
Musical.ly.
One of their, well, not Musically, but one of Snapchat's business development.
They moved over. That's right. Yeah.
Who went over. So, we've been talking to them a lot, and I think we recognize like how important that space is, and that's a space that we need to be keeping an eye on, and those conversations are daily. So, awesome. I'd like to think that we'll figure something out. We just want to do it in the right way.
Do you start and you start with like Fox Sports first, and then you decide from there? Should we get an NFL on Fox account? Should we get is that kind of the next move?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Because, you think about Fox Sports, it's a little overwhelming in that we cover so many sports, right? So, we got to think about how to best program that so that, someone feels super served. And that's probably how we would do it. We'd probably start broad, and just like we do any platform distribution, get a little bit more specific. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be a sport that we have rights to. We just launched the association on Fox, which is an NBA vertical that houses, the best of our NBA content.
So you can check it out if you want, but I don't want you to rank in importance for Fox anyway. Maybe it's based on ROI or what have you, but Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, where are the most resources going? How do you kind of rank those in order of importance for you guys?
Yeah, so we actually have a great strategy. I think treats them all a little different. I know it's so cliche to be like, oh, we treat them all different. Yeah. I totally get that. Not everything is made for every platform, right. And I'm certainly not going to upload it. If we had an award-winning film, I'm not going to upgrade it or upload it to Instagram stories, right? So generally the way we try to look at these platforms is Twitter's live in real time. And so we're going to put something out on Twitter, and if it pops, if it works, we're going to spend that extra amount of resources to amplify that or to optimize that for the other platforms. And we do. We have different lengths. We have different shapes and sizes for this content on all the platforms. We go our longest on YouTube. We're sort of middle of the road on Facebook, and we're playing around with vertical on IGTV, where I think we've been a strong early mover. So we treat them all a little differently. And then the way that we treat Instagram stories or Facebook stories is we really try to make these like access platforms, use the power of the vertical phone to take people behind the scenes, with our talent or at an event like Red River. I like the Red River example because after, Oklahoma beat Texas, we used the power of a cell phone to follow around Jalen Hurts for 7 minutes until he got the golden hat. And when he put the golden hat on, we had the best hero shot in the house of it that you could only really get with a cell phone and upload the stories. So, when you look at our follower count distribution, we're very evenly distributed. When you look at our revenue, it's fairly distributed.
Interesting. Okay.
We're just very distributed. So.
Yeah, that makes total sense. All right. In our industry, FOMO is a major thing since everything moves so quickly. What's the one thing you recommend that all social media marketers should read or follow to make sure you're not missing out on anything too big?
Oh, that's a good question. I do read the trades. I read the synopsis. I read the SBJs. I read Alex Schraubig's newsletter. I actually don't even know how to pronounce it. I've been reading it for so long. But to me, it's actually not about following accounts. Like when I need to get information in this industry or pick someone's brain or learn a little bit, I just like to call people.
Yeah.
And being part of this industry now for 14, 15 years or whatever it's been, having that network of people that I can call, it's just super valuable to pick up the phone and, and call old colleagues at ESPN and pick their brain, or call, TJ or Andrew Barge from Twitter, or Greg Justice at TikTok, and just really tap into this internal network of just like, hey, am I crazy here? One of my favorites, I think a friend of yours, Nita Shrikant, is a person I love to, talk about the industry. And I think
she has some hot takes. She always has a hot take for it.
She's great. Yeah. I mean, she ain't going to give you a middle of the road answer, but I just prefer to call people. I think we all read the same stuff, like the real diamonds in the rough are in those conversations.
That's awesome. What inspires you? How do you stay on the cutting edge? Sometimes you're going through the all these different tent poles, and life can get kind of tired out there, but what inspires you to keep on pushing through?
Sure. I think I'm just a competitor. I like to compete. What better place to be than Fox Sports? Bunch of people that love athletics and competition, who cover competition, and what a competitive industry we're in. Just so many people vying for the same eyeballs. And that's what really gets me going is competing and trying to win, and, doing what it takes to win, the dedication, the commitment, the self-awareness, the self-learning, the self-improvement. I love that. And I always have. And, back to playing basketball, maybe talking a little smack just to up the stakes a little bit. I'm just kind of addicted to that, But I tell you what, lately, I had a mentor say, the best thing to be as a leader is invested. And I'm pretty invested in what we've done here.
Yeah.
And I care so much about it that it just drives me. If I haven't slept much, that going, because I'm so damn invested in what we've done here. And I also want to be a leader that, wouldn't ask someone on my team to do something that I wouldn't do, whether it's put in the work, the commitment, the dedication, the innovation or creativity, or have a tough conversation maybe that I wouldn't have. And what I've found is that in order to hold true to that mantra, I got to work pretty damn hard, because this team works so hard. Yeah. And so it started as sort of internal motivation, inspiration. It's really turned into trying to keep up with them on a daily basis, and just watching what they've done and how they've grown. And that's what pushes me.
That's awesome. It's funny. You probably get the same thing. But when you hire really good people that are just good humans, sometimes you may come in and you may not be on your A game, and they inspire you in those first 20 minutes. Like, all right, I'm at it. I snapped out of it. Let's do this thing. Like, you're stoked. I'm stoked. Let's have fun. So that happens a lot to me too. And
it's so rewarding, right? Like, I mean, it's just your favorite moments. It used to be when you did something, and now it's when they do something, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And it's humbling, by the way, David. It's very humbling in that, like, there was a day where I thought I was a good producer, and now I'm like,
exactly.
I don't even understand half these memes.
I don't say it to my staff.
Lady yelling at the cat.
I know. I don't say it to my staff because it probably would freak them out, but it really is like almost like a proud parent. You're watching somebody give a pitch in a meeting, or you're watching somebody even on a phone call and how they're breaking something down. You're like, damn, like, you've grown so much. I'm so proud of you, but you don't want to freak them out too much with the parental, speak. So anyways, I'm there with you. What's one of your guilty social follows?
Oh man, guilty social follows. Man, I'm sure that this isn't cool enough. People probably do this, but I follow a lot of places like food follows, like Fatuation LA or Eatery, or I just love to like.
You're a foodie. I like it.
I'm not. I guess I kind of am. Yeah. I'm also like, I don't know, but I enjoy following those. I enjoy following artists. Just like random designers, like Hands Off My Dinosaur. I don't know why. I like the subtle creativity. Liz Climo, a little artist that does some fun drawings with some little clever captions. And I really appreciate creativity. I also follow a ton of people, which I should probably cut down on.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I guess any advice for your fellow social media marketers out there that would love to ascend or be like in that VP position? Like, how'd you get there? What is kind of, if students come to you or people young in their career, what is kind of those main tenets you usually hit on?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, you got to work harder than you think you got to work. And everyone tells you that, so I'll tell you something different, which is be a terrific teammate. There's a million people out there that can tell you everything that's wrong. They can tell you everything you did wrong. They can tell you every spot you failed. not a lot of people out there that can identify something good in everything or something good in everybody, or bring two people together or have a tough conversation and walk out of it feeling great and ready to take on the next thing. I feel like people work on their Photoshop skills or their editing skills, their social media copy skills, like work on your people skills, talk to people.
And especially in our industry, man, like I feel like, sports in particular and live events and entertainment, it's so stressful already. And there's so much demand and there's so much deadline-driven industry that if you don't have that positive outlook, like it just ruins a team, ruins a person. It just it doesn't work. I don't think it can work, long term. So
you want people confident in those moments. Like big moment just happened. A social producer has 2 seconds to make a decision on how they're going to, produce better than 45 other people looking to cover that moment. And they're not always going to make the perfect decision. Sometimes they're going to make mistakes. Sometimes they're hilarious mistakes. But, the good news normally is there's another game the next day and we'll get right back after it.
And it only lasts about 24 hours, even if there's a blunder. So you just got to get through it. And then finally, if you can recommend anybody in your network that you think would be a great guest or provide some value for the listeners, anybody come to mind?
Yeah, I probably got a few for you. I got a few. I'll rattle a couple off for you.
All right.
I imagine you've talked to Nita.
Yes.
She's one of your favorites. Imagine you've talked to TJ.
I've talked to TJ. Talked to Katie.
If you talk to Katie, you talk to TJ, you got to talk to TJ's silent assassin cohort, and that's Andrew Barge.
All right, Andrew Barge. Getting it back on.
One of the guys that's behind every major deal that Twitter has in the sports space. Awesome. He went to Vanderbilt. Won't hold it against him. Georgia beat him by a million this year.
Hey, no big deal.
I'd like, you should talk to Gabe Goodwin. Gabe Goodwin was a longtime Sports Nation producer. There was a day when Sports Nation was one of 4 TV brands to have 1 million followers.
Yeah, they were the Bleacher Report before Bleacher Report. We talked about that a lot. Yeah, it's awesome.
He really was a pioneer. He went on to win an Emmy with Katie Nolan in Garbage Time and just did a fantastic job. And now he does his own thing here in LA. There's a guy at ESPN that is a friend. So this is a biased one, but his name is Tim Dwyer.
Okay.
And if you ever want to hear the greatest season ever of Tim Dwyer launching College Game Day social media and the trials and tribulations of sharing fan signs.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Hysterical, including signs that have hidden meaning behind them you didn't know, signs that you should stay 10 miles away from, or even how to handle a comedic account the morning after a tragedy like the Paris shooting. I think Tim will have stories for years. I think he turned that into he went to Everest to follow climbers who were documenting their summit on Snapchat. He came back, launched Game Day on Snapchat and SportsCenter on Snapchat, and now works for ESPN Plus. And
so Tim Dwyer on social risk management. How about that? I like that title.
He would love it. Yeah. And just one more for you, so I'm not leaving anyone out. There's a guy, I think he's the CRO at MVP Index.
Okay.
An amazing data company. He came from Mass Relevance and Spreadfast. And if you ever want to just have your mind blown and talk to someone who's 4 steps ahead of you at all times on the data front, Brian Foley. He sees the future. So, all right. Yeah.
Hey, Producer Will, we just got our next 4 episodes booked by the great Michael Bucklin. So he's doing your job for you. Yeah. That's good. I appreciate it.
I got more, guys.
Yeah, no. Let me know. I'll have to take you out for lunch, so thank you. No, I appreciate it, man. But this has been awesome. Thank you so much for the time, and good luck. I know there's only more tent poles to come and no resting, so keep the caffeine up.
All right, David. Thanks for having me,
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Cool.
Yes.
All right, there he is, Michael Bucklin. Will, again, you might have to, just take a few days off. You don't need to book any more guests. This guy gave 4 solid guests. Brian Foley, Andrew Barrs, Tim Dwyer. These are all great guests.
Yeah, and he said he has more on top of that. So I think we need to do.
You should thank him. Right?
Hire for some consulting or send him a bottle of wine or something.
Maybe when you're out on vacation, Michael Bucklin come in a little, shadow producing for the pod.
I can't thank him enough.
All right, so some really good stuff there. I think it's interesting to get the take from somebody that oversees so many people, oversees so many properties, on how he's done it all. I love how they approach success, where he's going, and I think I love his underdog mentality of, we're going to be on the right side of history. So all you social marketers out there that may be frustrated, you may not be getting enough budget. It's only changing. Month by month, year by year. Even here at STN, man, we started this company 7 years ago, and the budgets for social used to be about I don't know, $100 a month, and now they're getting up towards the millions, man. So things are changing. It may be slower than a lot of us want it to be because we know this is the future. But he made a great point too, Will, and we talked about it a lot on the podcast, is, a lot of these big companies are showing you where they're going. I mean, Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, where all these, Peacock and all these different streaming services, they're starting to move their business revenue model over to online streaming, digital. So that tells you where it's all going. Just follow the money when it comes to that. All right. Thank you so much, as always, to Dylan, producer Will, Furker, for all their help on the podcast. This has been another edition of the Business Social Podcast powered by SCN Digital. Once again, thank you to Michael Bucklin, the Vice President of Digital Content at Fox Sports. We will see you for episode 49.